our weekly press briefing. Normally we will say here at the Executive Mansion, but today we are at the ELWA office, the President's office here in Painesville. I'd like to their radio or television or on any social media platform, we'd like to welcome you to this edition of our weekly press briefing. This is our first press briefing post UN General Assembly when the President had gone to visit. Those of you who are also viewing this in the diaspora, I want to welcome you to this special edition of our weekly press briefing here at the President's office in Rehab. Today, as you know, is Friday, October 10th. A year ago, actually 2 years ago, we were all gearing up. I just saw a reminder of the elections when we were gearing up to go and vote on October 10th, actually 2023. And actually it marked exactly 2 years after that elections. The first round, and then on November 14th was the second round. However, that's just a side intro because it was such a reminder. So what I'd like to do today is to, like we always do, give you an update of the President's week. It has been a busy week. The President has not rested. And continuing towards the weekend, and he's been very, very busy. Coming from the UN General Assembly 2 weeks ago, as well as the first diaspora conference that was held in Washington, D.C. area with Liberians there. The President would like us to thank the Liberians who came together, both at the United Nations General Assembly where they had gone to welcome him, to be a part of the activities there, to listen to him speak and address the United Nations for the second time. And in fact, this gone participation, he actually spoke at the UN 2 times. The first one was the Beijing Platform for Action is a movement that started, or it was a movement that brought together or talked about the women's issues, bringing women on the forefront, particularly creating what today we have the United Nations Women, UN Women. And the President spoke, talking about his vision, what he's doing on the front as a he for she, but more so specifically at the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, the team there, what they're doing and how they're working towards uplifting and implementing the President's agenda for development. The week, as I've said, have been quite busy. The President had a very important meeting earlier this week with his security team. Regularly, he gets briefing from the national security team. That includes all key sectors of our security apparatuses. And he wants us to inform you that the country is safe and we're in good, state, especially so that with all of what's happening, the country is safe. And his fight against all the challenges is really actively ongoing. As you know, also in a way to enhance his work on the issue of illicit drugs and alcohol addiction. He also have supported by the presentation of some vehicles or logistical items to the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency. The team there expressed the challenges of logistics and meeting, because of recent, there has been an elevated work with the LDA team from the different seizure that's been happening, from the different confiscation or even arresting suspects and people who are found to be in possession of substances that are illicit. And that work was being enhanced by His Excellency by the provision of some logistical items during the course of the week. He also have had a meeting with the team from the Ministry of Health. And currently, as you know, during the course of the week, there was this information about the Elwa Hospital or the ELWA Hospital. He had a meeting with the team. He's also met some international partners and other leaders in the sector to see what needs to happen in there.
And earlier on, I'm sure some of you have followed the president before. Actually, when the president was away, he did hold a meeting with different sectors. He was regularly briefed while he was away, but especially so on the side of our oil and gas industry. The country have made some key inroads. There were contracts signed while the president was away by his team from the LPRA, that is the Liberia Petroleum Regulatory Authority, and the National Oil Company of Liberia, NOCAL. So these institutions have been in consultation, especially in connection also with the sector agencies that are in charge of the oil and gas sector of our country. And they've been really working hard to get interested partners who are interested in further exploration of our oil and gas industry so that we're able to get back in the market. And he received briefing as to what has happened, especially on the signing from the government of Liberia side, as well as the international partners. There were 8 production sharing contracts signed when he was away. And so he received full briefing today from the both teams, that is NOCAL, as well as the LPRA, as to the contracts and where it is. And as you know, part of our legal processes, especially when we are entering into an agreement with partners, it has to go through legislative processing. So the legislature should be resuming their activities, I'm sure I've heard either today, and those contracts will also be forwarded. But as a way of presentation, the team did present the 8 contracts to our president this morning, and the president was excited, letting the country to know that these issues, these efforts are all in the interest of ensuring that Liberians have jobs. Because if these processes go through all of our internal legal processes and procedures, and these will be an opportunity to create jobs for Liberians across Liberia, and even the different sectors, the different communities that these contracts or these activities will be happening. Besides job creation, infrastructure development projects, and a number of different things that have been happening. The president also received briefing from his sector on infrastructure, particularly on roads, and with LPRC as well. And he received continuously update from his economic team. There are some prospects going on, but more so in continuation of the price reduction processes that he started, talking about the everyday bread and butter issues. You know, when you talk about some things, people say, oh, what about the bread and butter issue? The rice price remains stable, as what the president and team reviewed. There are other further revisions happening. He also received briefing from his agriculture team. Specifically on yesterday, the Minister of Agriculture did brief the president as to some key roles that are happening and what he intends to do. So I'd like to inform the Liberian people and all of you listening that our president is very upbeat. He's happy, excited about the current progress. It may not be all rosy or all perfect, but as you go along, infrastructure development projects will be working, with the Ministry of Public Works. Ministry of Public Works have also informed the president about their Operation Octopus. I'm sure some of you have heard, meaning this dry season actually beginning the 15th of October, that is few days from now. Actually exactly 5 days from now, we'll start major road works, in the country, projects that are ongoing. Season to pass, those projects will get back on course, and to inform all of you that our president is working really, really hard to develop Liberia and to work to ensure that this country moves forward on both the bread and butter issue and the hard development issue. As we speak, since the president got into office, he did launch the Arrest Agenda for Inclusive Development. And part of that, when he addressed the country the first time, when he talked about the reconciliation initiatives, most of you are aware that our President Reconciliation Initiative have really been ongoing from the reburial effort, from meeting family members, from engaging. Interestingly, the world have been watching. People from other countries have been watching, and they've been following Liberia's progress. I say this to announce to you that one of such persons is the Togolese president, Honorable Faye Yasengli, and he has invited our president to go and speak to his country and people about our reconciliation efforts and the efforts as to why and how the president is able to do this, uniting our country, bringing back, people who didn't see each other for a very long time or didn't know the whereabouts of their family resting places to be able to rebury, but also the diaspora initiative. So the president was invited and request made by the president of Togo that our president go to speak to his people on tomorrow. So I'm saying this to announce to all of you that His Excellency will travel to Togo Lomé this afternoon, and then he will return tomorrow. But the event will happen on tomorrow, where he will be speaking and talking about our reconciliation efforts, what he's done so far, what he's looking forward to doing, and how, best practices and what lessons us can learn. And this is to say that Liberians, we should be excited. We should be happy that these efforts, they say the king is not appreciated back home, but our president will be there to talk about some of these initiatives. And His Excellency also wants us to inform the public about some of the activities of the diaspora. When he spoke in DC, he invited Liberians to come home. And by December this year, they will also be able to return. And the diaspora team, we're looking forward to you all coming and Liberians from all over the world. Because for the first time, the conference was held, a very productive conference. A conference that brought together business leaders, Liberians who are doing different things in different, aspects. And this effort was to really showcase what we have and what we can do as people, because the government by herself cannot develop everything. You need the private sector. Every developed country has a vibrant private sector ongoing. And the private sector helps to keep the wheels of the economy moving. So the president is inviting every Liberian outside of Liberia to really connect with their roots, contribute in whatever way possible. And the process is there. The president also have established at the Executive Mansion the Office of the Diaspora Affairs. So these things are all in the interest of developing our country and making sure Liberia becomes better. And I will inform all of you, again, Liberian people under my voice, that we have a president who does not only care about Liberia, but does everything he sees it necessary to develop this country. And by that, he continues to work every day as we speak. Even here, he's right down the road in his office, having other meetings, talking about different things, even though he has a flight to catch in a few hours. But yes, this is someone that the Liberian people voted for, and that's what he's intending to do.
All right, Madam PPS, thank you. My name is Samson Masurin, I report for the Presidency Atty. I listened to you, but you did not mention serious allegations that is on personal office as it relates to the presidential figure.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yep.
With this, Mr. President, receiving contracts from the Petroleum Regulatory Authority. I'm concerned. In the past, local and other oil-related entities, we all know the issue of squandering national funds as it relates to managing these huge entities. How different does Mr. President intend to approach these new contracts that land there on his desk, so that we don't encounter similar circumstances that we encountered in the past? That's number one. Number two has got to do with recent complaints that we all have been witnessing as it relates to the police in terms of some violent situations especially now that most citizens are recommending trainings and other refreshers for the police in interacting with the public as it relates to public safety. If you are aware of several incidents, we have one most recent one where a fellow was unearthed due to a very violent situation that occurred at recent. Has this reached Mr. President, and is he concerned? And then lastly, if you're following Madam PPS, the multi-user rail deal with HPS is very crucial. As we all know, in the past, the executive has been fully involved with this particular deal. And this deal, obviously, once implemented, expects Liberia to raise up to 1.6 billion in a rail user fees for the country. That's a lot of money. But I've not been seeing a lot about this deal of recent. If there's any useful detail about the multi-user rail deal with HPS, I would really appreciate what you provide. Thank you.
Further, okay. Thank you. So I will take those. I will start with the contract that you mentioned on in terms of speculation of squandering. In time past, what we do know, well, in other instances, institutions sometimes are not giving the full authority to do their jobs, and sometimes these, issues are, and there are always these issues of usurpation of functions and whatnot. But in this instance, the president have given his 100% support to the institutions involved, that is the LPRA, because as you know, the LPRA is a regulator. That's why it's called the Liberia National Regulatory Authority, Petroleum Regulatory Authority, and then you have the NOCAL. So NOCAL is also like the company. So the LPRA is here, and NOCAL is here as one of a company within the oil and gas sector, Liberia's own. So based on that, LPRA as the regulator is in charge of reviewing and ensuring that what is in the contract is being implemented. So, for example, as you know, the contracts were only presented to His Excellency. The legislature has only just returned to the legislature, and they have to go through their own internal review processes. I'm sure they will do public hearing. My understanding is that they will do public hearing. The necessary questions will be asked. Since they're the ones representing the majority of the people, they will be able to put in all the benchmarks needed to ensure that the Liberian people benefit from their natural resources. So this particular one is that in terms of squandering, one of the things that the president has really done is to give institutions the opportunity to do the work according to the laws that are governing them. So where there are any issues of corruption, any issue of graft, any issue of squandering, and you've seen for the first time in our country that you have a leader who will take drastic measures or actions against public officials who are perceived or even accused of any form of corruption. There've been suspension in some places and they've been dismissal in some places, and people are currently undergoing investigations on allegations that they were involved in graft. So it's not going to be any different from this one, or in fact, this one, because it has to do with major project, major sectors such as oil and gas that has a propensity to employ lots of Liberians, but besides the employment, but to also develop the country, because once we're able to develop our oil sector, it's a whole value chain, and it's also infrastructure related. If we have the oil and gas sector that's, in a place where we're able to, receive what is due the country, is something that the president is looking forward to. And the president is not just doing this just with this institution, but also he has his office that's directly involved with them. They receive, he receives regular updates from them, the stature of this, how far is it, and he also have appointed legislative liaisons. So these liaisons will also be actively working with the office to give him update as to the status of these different programs. As to the presidential villa, in all honesty, I've not really made key follow-up because, yes, we've heard of in different comment, but I will get back to you with the key information as to the current status, whether or not the source, whether this is sanctioned by the president. but just the general information that we've received so far. It's not something that is the president personal property as it is speculated. Whatever that has been developed will be in the interest of the government. It's a government owned, so it can be another president, another is a country's property. But so far as to the key details, as to the sources, funding, and all that, what's necessary, I'll get key update, because I'll try to reach out to contractors and those in charge of it, and then I'll give you some information. There was one information I wanted to share with you earlier. I know there has been also some speculation about a young man who was awarded integrity icon. That it was a speculation that the presidency had abandoned a young man who was giving false tuition or scholarship by the former administration. But this is to inform the public that we've reviewed all of our records, and we've gotten update from administration that there has not been any information from within this government. There was no turnover note to state that there was an agreement that the government or the presidency will pay the tuition of the young man from where he was up to college. However, this is something we'll brief the president about. Should the president hear this and there's a need to support, that information will be provided. But just to clarify that there's no information whatsoever as to whether there existed this scholarship within the Ministry of State currently. There was no turnover note, there was no update as to that it was the presidency's responsibility to do that. On the issue of the police in the current state or police, is actually a very active investigation happening. Yes, the president is briefed as to what happened, as to the current status, but it's an active case, and the police authority, they're working on it to give further update. Because there was a life that was lost, the president extends his deepest sympathy to the deceased and family, and hopes that the police in future will do all they can and put in all necessary procedure that is required by law to protect lives and property, irrespective of the circumstances that happen. As to the multi-user and HPX and why not much has been heard. Some of these major agreements, their processes. Yes, I'm sure you're aware that the government has signed before now, and there's all the further legislative process that has to happen. And since the legislature is only just returning, we hope that they can expedite some of these, agreements that have been with them, and they'll be working on it. We'll take one final line of.
My concern was now that the legislature is back, because the executive from the onset have placed an interest on this. Do you intend now to start pushing more now that the legislature is back?
One of the things that the president has tried to avoid, every major project for the president is urgent, right? The president has tried to avoid interference directly with the legislative work, to say prioritize this, prioritize that. However, he regularly, he appointed liaisons. So the hope that is all these key things from the president's desk to the legislature, the liaisons from both the Senate and the House of Representatives will be able to follow up and do. But he is looking forward to getting updates from his liaisons. And of course, all these things that requires his intervention, he will, but more so those ones that will help the country move forward, will help the country, progress and give opportunities, jobs, and otherwise. I mean, it's something that he puts premium time on. Yes. Yes, Reagan.
So, thank you for the invitation. I'm more concerned about. My name is Reagan, as the report for the Presidency Agency. I'm concerned, according to information, you on this particular day of October 10, like you went to polls to elect your president, and the president was to overwhelmingly voted on this day.
In the first round.
Yes. Madam PBS, are there plans? Because we have been asking this question time to time, as to whether the president will go back to the people to appreciate that that's the counter to other plans for this.
Yes,
Okay.
Madam PBS. My name is Moses, and I report for Group 7. A
follow up first to the question asked on the president the project as a project protocol.
Which one? Okay.
You said as of now you don't have all the information. And you assume that whatever project is there is in the interest of the people of Liberia. With that little information we have, is it fair to say that is not a presidential project on the target? Two, Mr. President, the GA called on international partners to support in the establishment of foreign economic support. I was wondering, if what sort of support was the president for the kind of financial, or if in the absence of this support, whatever way he's calling for, how would that affect the establishment of the World Economic Support to the point that the head of the World Economic Support has stated in that word that by 2027 the group will be functioning and operating. And lastly, from my end, the president appointed Madam Lady Mafaya as president of the University of Liberia. Again, budgetary constraint has been in previous administrations, continues on the administration. How does Mr. President intend to change that narrative in the coming budget year or the future?
Yes, I will check this. What happened in this war? A few months ago, the president suspended ministers and director for a failure to declare their asset. I would let you know if they are being restored.
I was with Anthony Williams here again, and I was with the Ministry of Public Works of recent when they started demolition exercise for the expansion of the Japan Freeway. That's from the Gabriel Topper Bridge towards Simcoe Bridge and beyond. But my major concern here precisely has to do with District number 17 as it relates to government infrastructure projects, especially with old projects like Hotel Africa, the Military Conference Center, Ducal Palace, and other places. Just yesterday, lawmaker Bernard Drew Benson of District 17 workplaces with his people who reside on government property in District 17 on Hotel Africa. And in his words, he's pleading with government to provide some level of compensation for those people who have occupied those premises for quite a while now. Has this reached Mr. President? And also, since it is a very key project for government, is government intending to reach out to these people as they are gearing up to start working on some of these old infrastructure?
That's a very good question, and I will start with that. Thank you all. So one of the things the president has said, and this is what he's going to do, especially as it relates to old buildings, especially governmental property, there's going to be a post-conflict conference, especially on infrastructure. And all these key infrastructures in the country, not just in Montserrat, across the country, where they have these strong old buildings or even villas and whatnot, the president intends to bring some sanity to those places and renovation. Right now, there have been interest expressed in renovating some of the properties, including the Hotel Africa. As to whether the government will compensate, that's a conversation that has not happened yet. I can say that District number 17 lawmaker, of course, as a lawmaker, your interest is to be in the interest of the people. But should it reach that point, the team responsible from Public Works, even because sometimes when there are partners who express interest in a special project, they want to be able to invest their resources directly to that and not necessarily all these different issues. But sometimes, or most times, government can take responsibility and say, we will be able to do X, Y, Z to compensate. But again, this will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis and see what's possible. But when we get to that point, I mean, what will happen will happen. But the key message out of this conversation is about government interest in renovation and showing that these properties are put up and up to standards. As the suspension of the people who didn't declare their assets, I'm sure at this point everyone have declared because it was a major requirement. But one thing I want to add to that question or information to provide, as you know, recently the president did sign a directive to ensuring that public officials should pay the taxes, the property taxes, and the deadline is October 31st. So this is again a reminder that the president is not joking with this. He's going to take action because this is one way we can raise domestic revenue. So all public officials should be able to, by October 31st, pay their property taxes. As to the University of Liberia and the challenges with budgetary allocation, the University of Liberia is a major case, and the president is really concerned. He's been working with the president of UL, and she's also been updating His Excellency as to what's been going on. And this is something that the economic management team is also studying. As you know, there have been minimum intervention from some SOEs, and those efforts are laudable, for example, NPA and others. So the president is also looking keenly, or Moses who asked, yes, to doing more, because what the UL has said, the budgetary constraint has been something that's been ongoing for quite a while, and there are plans in supporting the university, but in a strategic way to see really, because at the same time students are paying fees, even though registration and others, and government takes responsibility of other things, even the tuition-free aspect that really brought additional challenges with the UL. But these things are something that the president is concerned with, and he's been receiving up. He has his team that will be able to provide. But this is something that he's really interested in. The establishment of the War on Economic Crimes, to what extent? Absolutely. The president, when he speaks or he says something, he means it. And the support he's requesting is the support for the entirety of the war crimes court, whether it is from currently, as you know, the office is operating. Even just yesterday, I did listen to the awareness that the team there, they're doing in the communities to ensuring that Liberians are aware. But also, one thing that will interest you to know is the fact that Liberians are actually waiting for this opportunity. So those who bear greater responsibilities of the crime can be able to pay for it. Because yes, while it is true that reconciliation is important, but you also need to be able to provide support and ensure that those who bear full responsibility are held accountable, so that there's not a repetition of something that happened in the past. As to the presidential project, whether or not it should be called presidential project, like I said, I will provide more updates in our next briefing. As we know, we receive some of the information, but the full information, I'll be able to give it to you more. But whether or not how you will call it, I know there is, as I mentioned earlier, this particular project, even if it is being constructed through a government, it is the government initiative, and it's not going to be a personal project. So just to inform the Liberian people that President Boakai does not have any private presidential project, private thing to say, oh, this is a private home that he will, on his retirement, the president has not built anything of his private use, and he do not have any intent as yet. He did not express this to us, and he's not done so. So there is not a personal project for President Boakai that he's building for his retirement. So just to disabuse the minds of people who are thinking in that, there has not been, and there's not. The property he has is this one we're in now, the Rehab house, the one he built several years ago, before some of us were even born, even in the property in Bomi County. So those are the two personal projects that he has. His home, that is the home here, he doesn't have any, retirement home, as has been speculated. But as to what's happening in Lofa, how much, all of those details, I will share with you once I receive them. As to the plans to go back to the people, the county. So the good thing about this time, the president have done in the last, under 2 years, he's achieved a lot of things. And whether for him, his thank you to the people is really not going to physically sit there and say thank you. It's to say, yes, you voted for us on October 10, 2023, and it's 2 years. And on November 14, you re-emphasize that vote by making us president, giving us more than 50% of our vote. I'm here to tell you thank you, but see what we've done so far. Road network are reaching you. We have electricity in your communities. Rice price is down. It's affordable. Transportation is affordable. So for him, that will be the thank you he wants to give to the Liberian people. I think so far that's where we are. And thank you all. And we look forward to catching and rejoining you again. The president will be traveling later this afternoon, as I have said. And we see you when we see you. Thank you and good afternoon.
That's the voice of the Presidential Press Secretary, Madam Kula Fofana. He is speaking to newsmen, and keep following the Executive Mansion for more information regarding the President and his activities. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.